Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 14 of the Matt Mettler podcast. I'd really like to welcome every one of you to the show and thank you all for joining me here on this episode of the podcast. It's really great to have you here and it's really great to join you for this episode. I'm thrilled to be here talking to you right now, let me tell you. So I just wanted to give a great big thanks to my man JJ Owens for joining me here on the Matt Mettler podcast. That was great to have a guest here on the show. It was really neat to be able to interview people. I think that that's something I'm going to be kind of digging on here in the future. So folks out there that want to get interviewed on the show and or have something to say on the show, Luke, I haven't forgot about you. I'm going to be contacting you pretty soon, my man, because I got a feeling that we can probably get something happening with you here in the next couple of shows. Okay, so Luke, my guy out there in mental health, I'm going to contact you on Gmail. I'm not going to just exclusively put this in here and act like you're going to listen to it. But I just wanted to give you some reassurance that, yes, we're going to do that, okay? I haven't forgot about you at all. One of the things I wanted to say that has just been incredible is the tremendous amount of support that I've received from everybody. Just the amount of positive energy that I've gotten back from people regarding the show and regarding just doing this project has been so nice, right? It has really given me the fuel to keep doing this and to keep producing more work and I'm hoping that you guys are being entertained out there, right? I really am. It's kind of slow in the beginning and I have some skepticism about Google and their algorithm and recommendations and stuff like that. Like I got a feeling that I've already touched on things that from the algorithmic perspective, it does not like, right? Because I got a small feeling that they're not really trying to promote this very much. Yeah, I can't prove that just yet. But for instance, like when I go and type the Matt Mettler pod, like it doesn't autofill it in Google. Google does not recommend it, right? And I'm told by at least one person that they're seeing it in their recommended feed, which is great, but they're a subscriber, right? So they should be seeing it in the recommended feed. But I don't think Google is doing a whole heck of a lot to try and promote this show outside of me trying to promote this show, because I got a feeling they don't like the fact of the things that I talk about on this show, right? Well, what are you going to do? That's why I put it on BitChute. That's why I put it on all these different places and as a preventative measure against Google trying to be funny with it, right? Like I'm putting this show on a whole bunch of different places and outlets because in the end, I don't care about Google. I care about you getting to listen to this show. And I want to give you as many different methodologies as I can to try and make it possible for you to do that without Google censoring your ability to hear thoughts. It really is bogus that you've got a company out there who's trying to decide who you should be allowed to listen to or not listen to. If you want to read something, it's your prerogative. If you want to listen to somebody, it's your prerogative, right? And I'm smart enough to recognize that just because somebody listens to something doesn't mean they believe it. Just because you listen to something doesn't necessarily mean you ascribe to every single thing that person says that you listen to. It's okay to listen to something and walk away with it going, I agreed with him on these 2 points, but those other 18 points, I just can't get with him. That's perfectly allowed in the American discourse. Yeah, so I want to reiterate what a tremendous amount of support I've received from everybody and how great that feels, man. It makes me feel like it gives me the fuel to keep going. It makes me want to just do this that much more, right? It is great. Next topic of conversation, I got to go on a road trip for the 4th of July. So over the long July weekend, I got to go on a road trip I went to Montana. And then stayed up there for a couple of days, then jetted over to South Dakota and stayed there for an evening, and then came on back home to the Big D, and it was absolutely great, man. I had a wonderful time. It was a beautiful drive the entire time. We did hit a little bit of weather and a little bit of fog, right? And that was a little bit hectic, right? But beyond that, it was a really wonderful drive. It was beautiful. All of Montana was covered with these yellow flowers. And when you were driving on the highway, in every single direction for like 7 miles, all you could see is flowers. It was amazing. It was incredible, right? And it was just beautiful. And it reminded me of what a gigantic, open, beautiful country we actually live in. And it also reminded me that I'm thankful to live out here in the Midwest. I don't need that concrete jungle. I kind of love how we got things here in the Midwest, right? It's a little bit of country, a little bit of city. That's the way to be. It really is. It was cool. I went to my roots. I got to go up to Montana and visit my mom and see how she was doing, and that was great. And one of the things that was really great about being at Mom's house is that she has an incredible view of the fireworks show, right? So right from her front yard, the fireworks show was going on at the park that's about maybe 125 yards up the street. So there was a park just a block away, less, and they were shooting the fireworks right from that park. So we sat in the front yard and had an amazing view of the fireworks show. The fireworks show went on forever. It was like straight up from 10:15 until 11 p.m. And it just kept going, and then you thought it was over, and then it would spurt some more and go for another 15 minutes, and then you're like, my God, will it ever end? It was pretty impressive, but as a guy who's seen a lot of fireworks shows, I was like, it kind of went on too long. That was just my opinion. But it was a pretty amazing show, and we did have an amazing front row seat for it, so that was pretty awesome. No doubt about that. Then we chugged on over to South Dakota, and we swung by the Black Hills, right? And I drove Becky through Deadwood and kind of just pointed out some of the highlights of Deadwood. A lot of people think, well, how can you really see Deadwood from the car? It's like, well, I lived around Deadwood a long time, right? Deadwood is not that much to see, right? It's the main part of it's only a couple blocks long. It's a very quick explanation. And unless you want to gamble or buy trinkets, you don't actually need to get out of the car. It's a pretty quick trip. And I drove her up through Lead, South Dakota, which is also, one of the towns that I grew up in as a young man. And that was really cool to see my roots and to see where I came from. And I got to stop and talk to my Aunt Jane, and she's a nurse at the emergency room up there. And so it was great to swing by and see her. She's wonderful, and I just love her. So it was cool to talk to her for a little bit. So after we drove through Lead and Deadwood, we got to go to Mount Rushmore. It had always been a dream of Becky's to go and see Mount Rushmore, and she had not seen Mount Rushmore in her lifetime. And, that's one of those things you got to check off your bucket list. It really kind of is one of the 8 wonders of the world, right? If you guys have never been to Mount Rushmore, I can't think of a thing more American than going to Mount Rushmore over the 4th of July weekend to kind of celebrate and just soak in it, right? It is an amazing sculpture. Gudson Borglum, the guy who did that sculpture over many years, had an amazing vision. And that sculpture, it's not just executed well, it is excellent, right? When you go and see their faces, they look just like the people that they're portraying, right? They didn't kind of hit the mark, right? It didn't come off like a bad tattoo. It came off like a portrait. Gudson Borglum is an amazing guy for having artistic vision like that and following through and finishing a project so massive. It is incredible to see it. It really is. So we got to go to Mount Rushmore. That was super cool as well. Then we tootled on down to Hot Springs, South Dakota, and that was really nice. Hot Springs is kind of a, laid back, beautiful little town. It's got some really cool historic buildings going on there. It's got some really cool history. It's got a beautiful little spring popped right out the side of a hill there that you can drink out of. And then there's also a really beautiful waterfall that has been there for, I can only imagine, quite a long time because it has cut a channel in the rock. So it must have been flowing for quite a long time. And it just really is a beautiful little place to visit, right? So we went there, and we went to a little place called Evans Plunge. Evans Plunge was established in 1890. And it's kind of funny because you don't go to too many places that are 100 years old, at least not in America, businesses anyway. So that was really cool, man. And they have this enormous indoor pool that isn't what I would describe as hot. It's just not cold. Right? When you get in, it's actually 87 degrees. And it's weird because there's all this heated water filtering up through the rock floor. It's cool. A good part of the pool is covered in river rock, like smooth river stones. It's kind of therapeutic on the feet, actually, when you walk around in there, because it kind of gives your feet this nice massage while you walk around on the floor. And then, like I said, it's not hot. It's just not cold. and it's really nice. And then they had a hot tub. They had 2 hot tubs, actually. And one thing that was really nice about that is that it was marked, you had to be at least, I want to say, at least 18 to use the hot tub by yourself or something like without an adult, right? So that wasn't really too much of a problem. There was really no kids in the hot tub area. That was nice. Yeah, and it was very reasonably priced. It was only $14 per adult, and that gets you all day. And I would highly recommend, if you're ever in Hot Springs, South Dakota, check out Evans Plunge. It was nice. It was really nice. And it was clean. It was really decent. And like I said, not overpriced. It was, we really enjoyed it. So that was a cool trip to Hot Springs, right? Along the way during my journey through all of these many fascinating places and to see my mom, I was reminded of the fact that we live in a country full of beautiful and amazing people. We really do. We have all kinds of amazing folks here in America making things happen, putting in the work, doing every single job that makes America work. It was kind of cool to just see that. And one thing that I'm always reminded of when I travel is that the vast, vast majority of the people that you encounter in day-to-day life are actually really good people. There are a lot of really good human beings out there wandering around in America. You know, and depending on where you go, you find great people. And only the tiniest percentage of Americans are actually bad relative to the number of people that we actually have in America. I've walked around a lot of places, and as somebody who formerly sold dope, I've always kind of told myself when I go into any neighborhood, I always remind myself, it's like, I am the guy your parents warned you not to hang around. Are you kidding me? I'll do just fine, man. Somebody approaches me and is like, what's up, Bessie? Like, what's up, man? You got some weed? You want to smoke it? I got some weed. Let's smoke it. Problem solved, right? It's sort of funny how the minute that other stoners know that you're in the club and that you smoke bud, well, then you got to be at least pretty decent. You got to be all right person to hang around with, you know, because you've smoked some herbs, man. You've had a little bit of time to contemplate Bob Marley and come to the fact that we're not all that different. When I've been around the world, we're really not all that different. We are more alike than we are different. We should all remember that, man. So it was really cool to travel and just be reminded that we have an amazing amount of just beautiful and amazing people in America that are doing great things, that are out there living life and being great. It was good to see that. We went to a really nice little restaurant called China Buffet. It was not a 5-star restaurant, but it was affordable and it was fast and the service was great and the people that ran it were really, really nice. And I could definitely recommend it to others if you're in Hot Springs, South Dakota. There's not a whole lot to choose from, but the China Buffet was a great little spot, right? I could totally recommend that to others as a place to get some food if you're wheeling through Hot Springs, South Dakota. All right? And so I got my fortune cookie. Right. And whenever I get a fortune cookie, somewhere along the way, many, many years ago, I started this weird, without a doubt, it's a ritual. Without a doubt, it's a ritual. I'll hold the fortune cookie up to my forehead and I'll say, universe, give me something good. And when I opened that fortune cookie, it said the following: don't be hasty. Prosperity will knock on your door soon. That made me so, when you ask the universe to give you messages, don't be surprised when the universe sends them to you. Because the universe is a weird place. I don't claim to understand the way that it works, but there's definitely sort of a call and response thing that happens when you ask the universe for things. So, you know, a while back I asked the universe to make sure that I was taken care of and that I wouldn't fail. And that I wouldn't be homeless, and that I wouldn't be destitute after pursuing the folly of this dream, right? So to get that message in my fortune cookie, it just made me feel a lot better. And I know that's probably silly. Most people probably think, you know, it's a fortune cookie, man. How are you going to put weight on that? But it's like, no, the universe. That fortune could have said anything before I cracked it open. And actually, in a Schrodinger's cat kind of way, I tend to believe that all fortune cookies have every fortune in them. And it's only when you open it that the fortune becomes known. That's what fortune cookies really are. It's like a Schrodinger's cookie. So I just thought it was so amazing and wonderful that the universe sent me that message. So thank you, universe. Thank you for the fortune cookie. I very much appreciate the reassurance that everything is going to be okay. That's great. I wanted to say that, we are the luckiest people to ever have existed. We really are. We should keep that in mind. Like, we live in an amazing time where we're able to communicate with each other, and I'm able to communicate to the masses without, well, the funny part is that once upon a time I'd say, without having to go to the big three or without having to go to the big media, I'm able to just broadcast this message directly to all of you. But now I actually go through the gatekeeper of Google and YouTube. So it's sort of funny how we're now actually sort of returning back to the same sort of big media gatekeepers that we once had in the previous incarnation of media. So the battle is on for diversity of thought, and the battle, all they talk about is diversity, 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 as long as it isn't diversity of thought. As long as it isn't diversity of opinion, diversity is all they can preach about. So I ask all the thinkers and scholars and smart minds out there to recognize that diversity is only good if it also includes diversity of opinion and diversity of thought. Because otherwise you set up a homogeneous state for thought, and that's actually weakness. Darwin would not favor people imbuing weakness into themselves like that. So just keep that in mind, people, that we're the luckiest people to ever exist in being here at this time, in this era, with this amount of technology, with this amount of comfort, with this amount of survivability, with medicines. 150 years ago or 100 years ago, a lot of people died from a simple infection. You got a simple infection in your toe, and it ended up creeping into your whole body, and you ended up dying from it. You got the flu, and you died from it. Millions of people throughout the years have succumbed to the flu. So we are very lucky to live in the time of antibiotics and medicine and all of these things that make our lives so livable. My next segment that I wanted to talk about is I just wanted to wish America a happy birthday. Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, no doubt. 243 years ago, an idea was born by men sick of being dictated to by faraway bureaucracies. And we are a country that was born out of rebellion. Why would we behave now? The spawn of amazing people who have made the way for us, who sacrificed their lives, blood, sweat, tears, and energy that we might have a chance. Dignified and thoughtful generations who persevered through many trials just to give us an opportunity to be free, to think for ourselves, to follow our own hearts and path, wherever that might lead us. The very system claimed as tyranny has allowed each person enough freedom to redress grievances and speak their piece. Perhaps it's not perfect, but I'd choose this over kings and dictators any day. At least we each get an opportunity that is our own to succeed or fail, to take our shot on our own terms. Of course, we have folks facing adversity. What would make that different than any other time in history? There has always been struggle. That is what life is. Here, we are afforded the latitude to make our own mistakes and choose our own path, think our own thoughts, and to believe or not to believe in that which we choose. Tell me, where else is a person afforded so much freedom? I say this not from the fervor of nationalism, but from an honest and open reflection. For in my mind, even with her flaws, America is still a great place. People who don't think so have no frame of reference for comparison, and have most likely never been outside the borders of this nation. And I'll forgive them for their ignorance. For I have seen distant shores and faraway places, and still love coming home to America. Happy 243rd birthday, America. You don't look a day over 242. So, happy birthday, America. It's amazing that we have made it this far. Everybody remember that. Not many governments in one given form last 243 years. In 243 years, most countries have 7 or 8 governments, more. We are very lucky and a shining example of how this does work to some degree. This can be successful when it's implemented in the way the founding fathers intended. So, happy birthday, America. Happy 243rd birthday, America. You're an amazing place, and I'm thankful to live here. My next brief topic that I want to talk about is that along the way, when we were driving from Billings, Montana to South Dakota, we saw a van that had rolled over and the windshield was all crushed and the roof was crushed. And I hope that all of the people that were involved in that accident are okay. I really do. As somebody who's gone off the road and flipped my car, I very much hope that the people that were in that accident are okay right now. But the point of bringing this up is that it reminded me of the fragility of it all. You know, we live in a world where life is fragile and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We do not know what tomorrow brings. Be thankful for what you got, people. Worry less about what you don't have and be thankful for the things you got, because we never know what will happen to us, right? So I hope everybody in that rollover accident was okay, but it reminded me of how fragile life is and how you gotta live it. You gotta get out there and live it, man, because otherwise you miss it and it's passing you by. So when we got up to the Black Hills, something that was really kind of cool that I wasn't expecting happened is we got up there and I wanted to show Becky the biggest hole on the planet. This is this enormous hole that they have dug in the city of Lead. You can't even call Lead a city. Let's call it a town. In the town of Lead, there's an enormous hole at a place that was once upon a time known as the Open Cut. It is now just known as the Gigantic Hole, I guess. I stopped and took Becky there so that she could see it. And what was so insane about that is that I'm going to include a link to it on Google Maps because you can view it from Google Maps, right? It's so enormous. That's how big it is. We stood on the edge of the hole and explained to her that this hole had been dug in the last 40 years. Just during the course of my lifetime, because when I was a young man, there was no mining going on in the Open Cut. When I was 6 or 7, something like that, there was no mining going on in the Open Cut. So it's only been the last 40 years that they dug this incredibly gargantuan hole and just moved millions and millions and millions of tons of earth in a mining operation, right? So we went and looked at the hole and, I explained to her that when I was a kid, I got to stand up on the edge of that bad boy when it was just the Open Cut. And what was so cool is when I was a kid, there was all kinds of wagons and old bottles and just every kind of thing that the pioneers might have thrown away, basically. The Open Cut had become sort of just a garbage dump for many different items. And so there was some really interesting kind of stuff in there that had been there a really long time. So we got to see the Open Cut, and she got to check that out with me. And in addition to that, there was a really sweet car show going on in the parking lot of the mining museum. So I took a bunch of pictures. I'm going to include those pictures here in this particular episode. And I'm also going to include a bunch of photos that we took while we were out driving of Big Sky Country and Wyoming, and just we live in an incredible and vast and beautiful country, and if you're not out there exploring it, I invite you to do so. I invite you to, if you're not exploring it because you're afraid, lay aside your fears, put that aside, go. If you're not exploring it because you think it has to be expensive, it doesn't have to be expensive. There are ways to still get to see things and get a little bit of diversity in your own life with where you visit and the cultures that you see and the things that you take in, right? It's worth it. Do it. If you're not doing it, do it, man. Get out there. Enjoy it. Yeah, so there were some really beautiful cars at that car show. It was great. Really, really great. And then, like I said, we made our way down to Hot Springs and went to Evans Plunge. That was really wonderful. Oh, next topic of conversation. I wanted to talk about some local bomb-ass eats. Recently, we discovered a place on Yelp called Bird Call. It is a wonderful little restaurant. They're serving all kinds of chicken, as you may have guessed with the name Bird Call. They're serving all kinds of like chicken Sammys. They got one they got like the classic. That's kind of just what you would expect on a chicken sandwich, but just done really well, right? Really nice, really great. The buns are wonderful. The sauces are wonderful. We had a Jamaican jerk one. That was delicious. It comes with like a pineapple and it has this wonderful jerk seasoning on it. It is so great. So I can't recommend enough that go on over to Bird Call. Great spot to get some food. Really wonderful. And the folks that run that place, great people. One of the things that's really nice is it's very kind of low... You walk right in, there's a little kiosk, you just order your food. Oh, and that's the other thing that's really beautiful. There's a little board that says your food will be ready in 5 minutes. They seem to be quite good at hitting their marks on how long it takes them to prepare your food. So it is really nice to go to Bird Call down on East 26th Avenue in Denver. Oh, okay. And apparently there are several of them. I didn't even know that. Okay. We've been going to the one downtown. It looks like there's another one over on East Evans Avenue and one on Wewata Street. So yeah, if you've never eaten at Bird Call, man, give that place a shot. I really enjoyed their sandwiches, and they have like this different soda. I don't know what kind of soda it is, but they have a sugar-free one that tastes amazing. It tastes just like Coke. It's really good. So I can't recommend enough going to Bird Call and getting yourself a chicken Sammy. This is definitely a great place to go and get some food. And reasonable on the prices, too. They're not, they won't break the bank. It's a really great place. I saw a really interesting vlog post by the new owner of the Hot-Chick-a-latte. And she has a really fascinating story she talked about the background of her story, and it was really interesting. And it just makes me want to support her that much more. So I thought that was really cool that she had posted this vlog with all this information, because when you know people's backstory, it actually makes you root for them. And something kind of fun? I was just recently thinking about how when I was a young man, my grandma would always listen to Paul Harvey. And Paul Harvey his voice was just so great, right? I think of Paul Harvey and he just had the best voice. And he would always do a show called The Rest of the Story. And one of the things that was so cool is watching this little blog that Christine had done. I was just really blown away by her story. When she was a kid, she had health issues and was afflicted with severe asthma. And she became a spokeskid for the Children's Hospital. Now she still struggles with that to some extent, but she's found a way and she's doing everything that she can to live her life. And now she's undertaken this journey of buying this business and is trying her hardest to make that successful. And after I saw that, I was like, wow, I had even more respect for her, because like when I had met her before at the store, I knew that she was the new manager and I knew that she was the new owner, and I thought that was really cool. But to know this additional story about her, it just shows people making their way, people persevering over their adversities that they've been given and finding a way to make their dreams happen. And so in that way, it actually made me want to support her dream that much more. So like, I'm definitely going to make sure I go there and give them some money. They're trying to buy a new espresso machine and it's buku bucks, right? Because espresso machines are crazy, crazy expensive. And then the other part of that is like some of the things that they inherited when they bought the business were maybe not in serviceable condition in the way that they were kind of purported to be. So let's get out there and help support that business. Let's help support the Hot-Chick-a-lattes, man, because they are a wonderful bunch of gals. And I really appreciate how much faith you got to put into a business to try and to launch it and to hope that it will be successful, right? It's part perspiration and then it's part hope. And it makes me just want to help them that much more. So to the gals of the Hot-Chick-a-latte, I'll be down there getting a coffee pretty routinely to help you guys and make sure that you can stay there and that everybody has jobs. So make sure that everybody goes and helps those girls out, right? They're trying their hardest to be successful, and we got to support them in that. In cannabis news, I saw some really good news in the fight for cannabis, man. I saw a really great story. So this story is talking about the fact that there was recently a study that confirms that cannabis oil can reduce or eliminate epileptic seizures in kids. which is great news. That is really great news that you got science out there finally taking on research in a way that doesn't start from a position of bias where they're trying to find out what's wrong with cannabis, where they're just looking at it with an open heart and an open mind and saying, how can it heal us? How can it benefit us? And that they found that it is very helpful in suppressing seizures in kids. Because if there's anybody in the world I want to see helped, it's kids. In my mind, they're the only people that haven't done anything wrong, and they deserve our help, right? So if cannabis stops their seizures, then let's give them cannabis. In my mind, after the amount of time that I've been using cannabis, if it was going to do all the stuff that Reefer Madness said it was going to do, it would have happened a long time ago for me, man. You know, I've smoked enough herbs in my lifetime that if I was going to have all those kind of kooky side effects that they talked about where I was going to jump out of a window and stuff like that, I probably would have done it by now, man. I probably would have done it by now. So I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen. So I just thought it was really great to see a story where science is finally getting some confirmation on the fact that cannabis absolutely has medicinal purposes, that the whole idea of it being on Schedule 1 is ridiculous in my mind, right? It's completely time to reassess that. And I would like to see it removed off of Schedule 1, and I would like to see it removed from the schedules entirely, but I know that won't happen because the government has dollar signs in their eyes for marijuana. But I am hopeful that within the next couple of years, the dam breaks, because the same kind of pressure that built before the end of prohibition of alcohol is the kind of pressure that is building on the laws against cannabis. And, you know, that was one thing that was really interesting is when you travel up to Montana or you travel up to South Dakota has very draconian laws regarding cannabis. So much so that they very seriously need to stop for a moment and consider how draconian and ridiculous those laws are, especially in the current context. Knowing what we know about the general fact that marijuana is not that harmful. It really isn't. If marijuana is really that harmful, I would love for somebody to leave a comment with a link to the stories or to show me, because we got 5,000 years of anecdotal evidence and 100 years of written evidence that it really doesn't have the negative effects that they'd like to portray it having. I'm very hopeful that that dam breaks in the next year or two and that a big wave of weed legalization happens across the country, and it finally puts so much pressure on these states that are just refusing to kind of step into 2019, because honestly, weed prohibition is so 1975, man. Come on. It's not 1981 anymore. It's none of those things anymore. We've had 30 years of music talking about smoking herbs. You know, Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke was like 1974. We now know that marijuana doesn't actually do all those crazy things that they tried to say that it did. So it's time for the government to change its ways, man. It's time for us to get hip and become a cool country. You know, just get hip like Canada and just legalize it. You know, I don't agree with a lot of the things that Canadians do, but man, legalize an herb, smart move. Smart move on the part of the Canucks there. So yeah, man, I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. I just want to thank you guys so much for joining me. You are an amazing group of people, my listeners, and I very much appreciate every single one of you. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, comment. You can always get a hold of me. If you got a beef with something that I said, or you don't agree, or you think that I said something that I shouldn't have said or whatever, tell me. Let's have a conversation about it. I think I've mostly maintained it in the realm of reason, but you know, I never know unless somebody says something. So thank you, everybody. And please make sure that you join me for episode 15 of the Matt Mettler podcast. The Matt Mettler podcast is a Matt Mettler production, copyright 2019.